And good morning. My name is Ryan Belmore, and I am the owner and editor of What's Up Noop. And joining us this morning, we are going to be joined by Middletown Town Councilor Henry Rick Lombardi Jr., who joins us this morning on this beautiful Saturday. And good morning, Rick.
Good morning, Ryan. And
just going to check your mic. Hey, perfect. How's it going over there in Middletown today?
It's beautiful because, I'm up here in my office on the campus of St. George's, and we got that $1 million view of Second Beach. It's absolutely picture perfect beach day in Middletown. It's what makes us great.
So over the last month, that's it. Over the last few months, many of us have been locked in our home with COVID, and not with COVID, but due to COVID. And, I've been planning what we're going to do this summer. And you made some plans that you're going to run for a different kind of seat this summer.
I am. I've announced on Thursday and Friday that I'm going to be running for the District 74 seat in the House of Representatives.
And now, before we talk about moving forward, let's talk about where we've come from. You've been on the Middletown Town Council, and tell us about your journey there, and why you initially ran for that seat, and what your experience has been like there.
So my whole adult life, starting from when I was about 22, 23 years old, when I got involved with the Newport Police Department as a reserve officer, and moving on as a regular officer several years later, I've been involved in the community. In Newport, the Newport Police Department is traditionally known as a community policing based department, and you work with the community on a regular basis. I coached at Rogers High School for 15 years. I coached wrestling, and being a police officer, that was an advantage for me with the kids because they got to know me, they got to trust me, and it helped me a lot in the community because I got to know parents and the like. So it was good. I went on from there to Brown University Police Department for 6 years until I came on here at St. George's as a director of campus safety. Once again, working with kids. As far as Middletown goes, I sat on the juvenile hearing board. I coached wrestling at the high school and in the middle school, and worked with Newport County Youth Wrestling, coached Little League, just been involved with the Substance Abuse Task Force. One of the things that I was very involved in when I was on the police department was substance abuse. So every step of the way, my whole entire life has been community-based stuff. And I always said to my wife, and I had a few people egging me on in many, many years, you ought to run for town council. You ought to run for town council. Well, I made a promise to my wife and to my kids I wouldn't do that until they graduated from high school. So when my daughter Tara walked across that stage, I was probably heading to town hall to get the papers to file for town council. And it was just a way to give back to the community that I basically grew up in. I mean, I came from Bristol, but my entire life, basically 50 years, has been in Middletown. I went to school here. My parents raised their family here, and I bleed Middletown blue. So that's where it leads me today. I mean, it's been a productive 6 years. I'm very happy being on the council. I could certainly run again and do another 2 years, but I think it's time to explore another avenue, and I think it's time for a change. I think some fresh eyes and some fresh ideas would be a welcome addition up under the big dome on Smith Street. So,
yeah, and we're gonna have to some other day talk about the wrestling because I grew up in Coventry and went through their wrestling program.
So I know the Smiths and I know Dick McGarry well.
So I wrestled under the Smiths and McGarry, and during my 4 years tenure in high school, it was a great program.
We came to you guys when you're at the state championships, by the way.
Yeah, it's and many don't know, one of the greatest wrestling programs and greatest sports programs to come out of this state. So
they hold the national record for the most championships won consecutively.
Yeah, I think it was 18 when I left.
20.
Yeah. So they went up.
It
Yeah. So, talk about some of the things when you say change and a new set of eyes, some of the things that you could see be done differently, or some of the things that you would bring up there and thinks needs to be brought to the attention. By the way, District 74, for everybody watching, is Jamestown and Middletown. And so how do you see, what could you bring up there to the State House for Jamestown and Middletown?
So, as I look at what's going on up there, that's a house divided in many ways. Progressives and conservatives and moderates and the whole bit. And at the end of the day, when the election's over, you got to take the letter away from your name, whether it's a D or an R or an I, and you need to be able to do what's best for the state. I know we've got an $800 million budget deficit, but prior to that, it was a $200 million deficit. And that's been year after year after year after year. I think, if I had to describe myself, moderate, fiscal conservative, but I certainly know that it's a team effort. It's not about me. It's about us. It's about we as a team. They need to be able to work together. And what's going on up there now is not sustainable. When you look at the school funding formula, maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more later, but that's unsustainable and not equitable. There are cities and towns out there that are getting less school funding, and there are some that are getting more, and they're not getting a lot of bang for their buck. I think the philosophy and hold standby for a minute.
It's okay. And we are chatting with Rick Lombardi here.
Sorry about that.
This is a live video. One of the things I like doing about it is, with live video, nothing is scripted. We are, you and I just set this up. We didn't exchange questions. We didn't exchange anything. So we just go wherever the conversation brings us.
I forgot to mute my phone. That was my dog barking. Anyway.
It's all right.
So, I think when it comes to working together, and I don't see a lot of that sometimes. It needs to change. So really, I think my unique perspective, being a town councilor, working from the grassroots, from the ground up, looking at budget the way we do here in Middletown, and we work hard at our budget, sitting down with the people who live in this community, the blue collar people who live here, the seniors, the thing that we have to do as town councilors or legislators, you need to be able to talk to people at what they discuss at their kitchen table every morning. How do you make ends meet? How do you pay the bills? How do you put oil in your tank? For seniors, do you get prescriptions, or you buy something extra at the grocery store? We need to be able to realize that that's what's important. And today, even more so, with what's happened with COVID, and you've got sometimes not one, but two people out of work in a household. And those people are struggling to pay their taxes and to keep their heads above water. And we need to be able to figure out, how do we help them? And it starts sometimes at the State House. It's tough to do it from the town council perspective. You only have so many resources, and the well is only so deep. So we need help, and we need help from the State House. And I don't see us getting a lot of that right now.
Now, you announced less than 48 hours ago, you announced on Thursday evening. What's the response been so far?
I have not had one negative response. Totally supportive. People are behind me. People know what my message is. People know who I am. They know that I come from the roots. Not privileged. My wife and I both work. My kids are, well on into their own careers, sort of. And I live every day, just like the people in my neighborhood. I live in a blue collar neighborhood. Nothing special about it, And
to remind everybody, all candidates will be filing their declaration of candidacy on June 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. And then there will be a signature period where each candidate running for office will need to get signatures. So I'm sure you'll hear from Rick as well as other candidates when that time comes. But it's 22nd, 23rd, 24th. So less than 2 weeks until people make it official. some of the topics that you've heard from people since announcing. What have people kind of been telling you that you need to work on once you get up there? Is it those things around the kitchen table?
It is, and it's tax relief, and it's ways of helping people, you know, take care of their families. So yeah, that's one of the issues. Obviously, education is an issue, and I'm well aware of that. And it's been very difficult for us in Middletown because, you know, with the school funding formula, we've lost over 10 years in the school funding formula. The town of Middletown, the Middletown schools have lost over $1 million in funding from when that school funding formula was implemented. And we need to figure that out at the state level. You know, I'm not throwing stones, but the fact of the matter is, the way the school funding formula is set up, 80% of the Providence School Department's budget was funded by the state over the last 10 years, 80%. And you know what that got them? The results, look what's happened. You know, they had to take over the school system in Providence. They didn't get a lot of bang for their buck. And those are our tax dollars too. And here in Middletown, we lost $1 million. Unfunded mandates for special ed, transportation costs go up, and it's going to get worse with COVID because they're not going to be able to put as many kids on school buses. So transportation is going to go up. And that's the state telling us what to do. They need to tell us how we're going to pay for that. I mean, so that's one issue. And
and maybe we'll stick on that issue for 1 minute. You know, what do we do about education in, you know, we can keep it to the district, but obviously education is bigger than Jamestown, Middletown. You know, even if we kept it on the island, how do we fix, obviously, you've been on Middletown Town Council. You're aware of, you know, Rogers High School and all of the public school things. We have CESU looking to still do, to have the discussion about regionalization. You know, if you have a magic wand, how do we fix education?
So, wow,
I have to say magic wands because
I wish I could fix education in a heartbeat with it, just like everybody else does. And look, I've been a big believer in our schools. I would love to be able to give them everything they wanted. But, you know, ultimately, again, the tax dollars, we've got to spread them out, and the school funding formula doesn't help us. You know, I know what CESU's initiative is, and I understand it, and they want to get some people to the table to talk. My question right now is, first of all, they've got enough signatures to put it on the ballot. At least that's what I've been told. And
and that's what they've instructed to us. Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, let the people speak their mind. Let them vote on it. I mean, we have to respect that. It's their tax dollar. It's the people of this community. And if that's what they want, if they want a discussion about unification or regionalization in a much bigger picture, and that's a huge picture, by the way, you know, it's not the same as unification. So if that's what the people want, please let it happen. I have no problem with that. And if that initiative goes on the ballot, let the people have their say. I think that's what this is all about, and that's what it should be. I'd be interested to see how that turns out. But what it comes down to for us and on the island is that, you know, Newport has a bond out there for Pell and for Rogers. I happened to listen to that conversation the other night, and I think before any conversation can happen now, no matter what happens with CESU and their initiative, you got to wait and see what happens with the bond initiative in Newport.
Yeah.
Because you may not have anybody to go to the table with if that bond passes. And if it doesn't pass, then I think we've got a willing partner in Newport. And if the voters in Middletown say they want it, then go for it. Let's see. But I will tell you that, you know, regionalization brings forth, you know, some challenges in and of itself. When you talk about the budgets for each community and the schools for each community, and that's my main concern. I have no problem with our kids being together. Our kids are together now in a lot of ways. That's not the issue. It's never been the issue for me. You know, we are a diverse community, and we're getting more diverse by the minute. We have Title III. We have two Title III schools in Newport and Middletown now. Forest Avenue is a Title III school, and so is Gaudet. So anybody that tells you that we're not diverse and that our kids are not, doing things together now, that's not at all true. For me, it's about budget. It's about funding. It's about how do you balance it out between the two communities so that each community is paying their fair share, and that all needs to be negotiated at the table. So let the voters have their say.
You go up to the State House, how do you think you can fix issues like that you were seeing in your former life as a Middletown town councilor, as a state rep?
So as of right now, I know the Senate had a work group that was looking at the school funding formula. They made some recommendations. The House hasn't done that yet. I think that's one of the things that they need to do. They need to put together a commission, and I know another commission, another work group, but it can't just happen because you just can't write legislation and hope everybody's going to jump on board or come up with a new funding formula. Rhode has to be involved, and all the players at the table, the Superintendent's Association, the school committees, you need to bring them all to the table, and you need to come up with an equitable work group that will come up with a formula that doesn't hurt the suburban communities, while the urban core and the urban ring, absolutely, they are in need. Their needs are different than ours down in the suburbs, but it has to be fair, and it's not fair right now. So that's one of the issues. I think that, bringing new, good, commercial, economic development to this state is just so important. MSNBC about several months ago ranked the state of Rhode Island last in small business friendly, being able to start up small businesses in Rhode Island. Last in the country, 50th. That's not good for us. We need to be able to diversify ourselves economically. And I'll tell you, and you saw this in the article in the paper the other day, I'll say it again, and I'm going to say it right up till Election Day. I know how important the hospitality industry is to us. I know how important tourism is to us. But if COVID has taught us anything, the bottom fell out. And there are going to be restaurants and there are going to be places that are not coming back after this. You know that, and I know that. I think this shows us, particularly here on the island, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. We need to diversify economically. We need to find a way to bring new businesses to this island. The small businesses are the lifeblood and the backbone of this country. And that's what we need to focus on in Rhode Island. We need to get better when it comes to bringing economic development here. Good,
there's a lot of
professional development.
There's a lot of buzzwords that we've heard over the years on the island. We've heard, the blue economy and STEAM and innovation, innovative hubs, and all of these different things. You think you look at one or think one would help us more than the other, or is there a certain industry you think this island, as well as Jamestown? I don't want to forget about Jamestown.
No, Jamestown is very important in this discussion.
Yeah. Do you think there's any particular industry or any particular thing we should be pushing for in particular?
I think the sciences and the technologies and engineering, when it comes to STEAM, and when you look at high tech, they all work hand in hand. They all have a piece of it. So I think they're all important. But when you again look at our kids, look at the trades. There's the developers, people who want to come here and develop, people who want to build homes, plumbers, electricians. We have some success stories here on this island. Business people that everybody would recognize their names. that came out of the technical, vocational technical school at Rogers, and they didn't go to college. And these guys are running $1 million businesses. You know, they're both two are contractors, and another one does, you know, iron and metal fabrication. And if I mention their names, you'd all know them. But so I think you need to be able to diversify. You can't put your hands in your bucket, you know, all in STEAM or all in technology or all in the defense industry. They all support each other. So just like the hospitality industry does, you know, I mean, that's part of it. The hotels and places that have, you know, hotel rooms that are, you know, resident suites and things like that. They support the technology in the military. They use those places. So I think at the end of the day, it's a much bigger formula than saying one is more important than the other. We need to explore all avenues, all avenues. We have to be prepared to think outside the box, as people like to say.
I was going to ask you, what would be your first bill introduced if you were elected, but I'm going to change it up a little bit and ask you, over the last 2, 4, 10 years, whatever time frame you want, what is one bill that you would have introduced or you would have been a supporter of, or you would have you know, signed on to, that you think would make a difference in the everyday lives of people in your district?
Absolutely education. Absolutely a new school funding formula. I would have been out in the front on that in a heartbeat. That should be, has to be the priority up there. And, you know, again, economic development, something to do with economic development. Absolutely the two number one issues for me right now. And in the past.
I've got to ask you, so let's see, in a couple hours here, it's 10:22 in the morning. A couple hours, we have another peaceful protest happening here in Newport. As a 20-year veteran in law enforcement, just want to, you know, what is your take? What have you been thinking over the last 2 weeks since the death of George Floyd? Or you can even go, obviously, all the circumstances and scenarios and people before that. But, you know, where's your head at with 20 years in law enforcement? What do you make of everything going on out there right now?
So, you know, Ryan, I'll tell you, it's more than 20 years in law enforcement. It's probably closer to 30 when you add up where I was at Brown, and it, you know, 4 years before I went on then as a regular, I was a reserve in Newport, and we worked the street back in those days. You know, Newport, again, the police department in Newport has a lot of goodwill out there. You know, their community policing program has been huge. And the first community policing office was out in the north end of the city where it was needed the most at the time. You know, Fred Gonzalez, for those of you who don't know, started that office, and Bill Fitzgerald and Steve Weaver, who was the chief, who was a pioneer in community policing in Rhode Island. But this issue, for me, is painful. What happened in Minneapolis was absolutely, without a doubt, outrageous, tragic. And, you know, I'll put it, I'm going to tell it what it is. It was a murder, plain and simple, and people should be held accountable for it. Every time I see that video, I get sick to my stomach. And I'm not exaggerating. It is painful for me to watch that. And trust me when I tell you, you know, every police officer in their career has moments where, you know, you get caught up in the moment. Things happen, and you try to do the best you can, and you protect yourself and you protect the community, and we all want to go home at night. But that type of an incident was absolutely uncalled for. I don't care if you're black or you're brown or whether you're a Latino or whether you're a woman or whether you're LGBTQ. You know, these are decades old issues. This didn't just happen overnight. You know, this country has been divided over this issue going back long before I was born. Okay, so I'm going to tell you how old I am, but I remember growing up as a kid in the mid and early 60s. And I saw what happened in Selma, and I saw what happened in Birmingham, and I saw what happened in Chicago, and I saw what happened in Tuscaloosa. My daughter went to the University of Alabama. I wasn't all that crazy about it in the beginning she told me that. It turned out to be a great decision, but I know the history. Chicago, Boston, the busing riots. That was all racial issues. And this country has put a Band-Aid on something that needs a tourniquet. So we can't kick this can down the road any further. All the sides, all the stakeholders have to come together, and they have to figure out how we're going to get along as a society. We all bleed red. And the biggest problem in this country today is we're divided, and there's nobody bringing us together. And I don't care if it's at the national level or the state level or at the town level. We need to do better as a society, and we need to do better as a country, because if we don't, we're in big trouble.
Now, going up to the state house, you can introduce legislation that does a wide variety of things on this issue. Obviously, a resolution, an ordinance, a law, a communication doesn't change how people necessarily treat each other, what people believe. So how, as a state rep, do you think you could make Black Lives Matter?
So I think, the whole deal, I'll tell you. So that when you talk about community-oriented based policing, okay, that philosophy is nothing new. The old beat cops were community police officers. You walked the beat, you knocked on the door, you talked to people, everybody got to know you, and you networked. So I think at the State House, the deal with this has to be, you need to put these people together, and you need to get them to network, and you need to get them to figure out how you fix problems in the neighborhoods, how you improve police community relations in the cities and places where it's not that good. I'm not so sure that, we can pass ordinances and laws all day long, but at the end of the day, there has to be some teeth behind it. And I don't mean bad teeth. I mean teeth behind it that put people in the same room. As a legislator, your job is not to just solve every problem. If Ryan Belmore comes to me with an issue and it's not something I have an expertise in, my job is to put you in the room with the person who can help you fix your problem. That's what we do as councilors. That's what we do as legislators. And that's what needs to happen up at the State House. Black Lives Matter, NAACP. I'm telling you, LGBTQ. I mentioned women's issues. There's people want stability, and they want equity, and they want people to just be fair and understand what their issues are and help them. People want help, and that's where the legislature and our government is supposed to do. They're not supposed to live our lives for us, but they are a resource to put you in the right room, in the right place, and with the right people to help you solve problems. At the end of the day, that's what it is. It's not easy. It's not something that you or I could, even right now, I can't give you the whole answer because I don't know the whole answer. But there are certainly resources up there in our country and in our state and in our community that can help us start to walk in that direction. And that's where we need to be today.
And, I think to editorialize a little bit here, as a town councilor or a city councilor, as a mayor, as a state rep, sometimes some of the best things you can do is not introduce new legislation or new ordinances, but just be a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I had a longtime state legislator from Newport who, wielded a lot of power at one time when she was up in the State House. And she said to me, you know what, Rick, sometimes the best legislation is the legislation you don't pass. You know, he said sometimes, you know, you need to sit back and you need to reassess, and you can't let your emotions take over, because sometimes you pass legislation and there are unintended consequences, and you end up hurting people more than you help them. It's called communication, my gosh, with the capital C. We really need to communicate better. And, you know, I don't see a lot of that. You know, common sense. Where is common sense today? You know?
Yeah.
I mean,
Before we get too far from the topic, I just want to ask you, with your experience, obviously we're seeing it on the news or reading the news every day. What opportunities do you think we have to improve our law enforcement in our police departments? Does anything need to be done? We've seen defunding. We've seen all different words to do to the police department and rallies. What can we do to improve? Obviously, we want to improve everything in our lives, and communities want to improve everything in our lives. How can we improve police department to, I can't make sure that doesn't happen again, but to reduce the odds of that ever happening again?
so the key for me, I've always been a big believer in training. No matter what you do in life, whether you cut meat, whether you fix cars, whether you're a police officer, whether you're a firefighter, whether you're, you know, makes no difference, whether you cut grass for a living. You will always, in a stressful moment, in a moment where you have less time to think, you will always revert back to your training. It's like training your dog. You know, you don't want your dog to mess in the house. Well, you reinforce with, you take them out, you let them out, you teach them that messing in the house is not what you want them to do, and you correct that behavior. When they do it, you correct it. And I think with no different than law enforcement, you know, from the day I went on the job until when I retired, training became more and more and more important. And we trained constantly. And I think you need to shift gears a little bit, and you need to refocus some of that training. And, you know, when they talk about defunding, well, I think what you do is you not defund, but you reallocate funds, and you work with other groups so that you bring in the right people to address these issues. Again, there are groups out there that specifically train police officers, and they come from the private sector. They come from the inner city. They come from, you know, all these groups that have been trying to do this for years. And, you know, in our business, and I say our business, we've traditionally been resistant. You know, when community policing came into Newport, you know, we had a lot of old timers, and the first words out of their mouth, well, I'm not a social worker. Well, no, you don't have a degree in social work, but guess what? 90% of our job was dealing with people's problems. And you know what that is? That's social work.
Yeah.
That's helping people get to the point where they can get some help. So you do that. You may divert funds to help you do more of that. You bring in the right people to train. The other piece of it is accreditation, national accreditation. So we have departments in the state of Rhode Island, many of them now that are accredited nationally, and we also have stated accreditation. What that does is accreditation. For national accreditation, the Newport Police Department and Providence Police Department had to meet 700 standards. 700. And they have to show every 3 years that they meet those standards. One by one, they have to prove that they meet those standards. Those standards, what they do is they improve your professionalism, they improve your standards in training, and they improve the when they call about professional standards, that also includes internal affairs and investigations when it comes to police misconduct and the like. So that needs to be a stronger emphasis on that. When it comes, we're just talking about the police departments alone here. So I think, again, the people, if you're going to create a statute or a law, that won't happen in this session, but it needs to happen. And they need to come together with the police chiefs, the League of Cities and Towns, the Senate and the House and all the stakeholders, again, Black Lives Matter needs to be at the table. NAACP need to be at the table. And they need to come up with some fair and equitable legislation that will make it work for everybody. It's a big task, and it's going to be costly. Nothing cheap about it.
Yeah, one of the things that are on many Jamestown and Middletown residents' minds is climate change, the environment. Some of the. Where do you see that going if you were elected rep of District 74?
So I see it every day here in Middletown. We have a storm. We see flood areas flood. What a lot of people don't know, we have an overlay that you can look at from 1973, air view of Second Beach. You put that overlay on the Second Beach today, and the estimate is since 1973, we've lost a foot of beach a year at Second Beach. When you go to Jamestown, go to Beavertail, and look at what's happening there with that roadway that you can't access anymore because of erosion. There's no explanation for that other than Mother Nature and climate change, and there's a sea level rise. Here on the island, we're dealing with it in a big way. We have to address that, and it has to be addressed soon because we're not ahead of the curve on this. I never remember, again, I go back to my days in Newport. I never remember flooding except for a hurricane coming into the Point area or into, the downtown area of Newport like it does today. I've never seen it back in those days. And now it's totally different. So, I'm a big outdoor person. We kayak. I used to scuba dive. I spent a lot of time out on the water, and I try to now as much as I would like to. And I'm a huge beach guy. The environment is very, very important to me. And climate change and sea level rise is real. So we need, as a state, to address it and address it soon.
Do you think we as residents of Rhode Island can do things on our own and make different decisions to stop or slow or to change what's happening?
So I think, you can do a lot of things. I mean, there are, energy saving opportunities with, electric cars and things like that, and emissions and the like. I think it's very important, our water, stormwater runoff. There are initiatives out there for people to get rain barrels so they can collect rainwater, reduce the impervious areas around your homes, like where we would get stormwater runoff going onto your driveway into the sewer system and the stormwater system, collect in a rain barrel, reuse it. Your gardens and the like. Composting is important, but stormwater runoff is huge. It's a big problem here on the island. It affects our water quality. What a lot of people don't realize is that our water supply here on the island is strictly groundwater runoff. Our water is not fed by natural springs. It's all groundwater runoff. So it takes more to filter that, and the Newport Water Department has hands full with that issue. But we need to be more cognizant of keeping the Bailey Brook and the Mayford River, all of that is part of our watershed. So we can all be part of that by not using organic fertilizers and the like, and more natural products. Very, very important.
Rick, we've touched on a wide variety of topics today, and we'll certainly catch up many times before. Well, you'll be in a primary, and that primary would be September 8th. So I'm sure we'll catch up before then, which the time will fly by because it's summer. But, anything that we missed today in this conversation?
So I do want to talk about one particular town issue. It's coming up in front of us on Monday night. As many people know, I'm a huge proponent of the Homestead Act. And,
yeah, you have about 55 items on your agenda for Monday night, so it'll be a marathon Monday.
Yeah, it's going to be a marathon night, and we have a time limit, a 10:30 time limit, and I'm not sure we're going to get to it all, but I will tell you that the homestead's very important for us. We need to get it implemented, and we won't be able to implement it in this budget cycle. But at the end of the day,
just a little background on that for those who might not know what that means. I know Newport has talked about it as well, so maybe a little background will help some understand as well.
So what the Homestead Act does is it gives the full-time residents of Middletown, people who live here year-round, who make their primary residence here, a tax exemption. It could go from anywhere to 5% to 20%. The council will set that, and it will get set every 3 years with each valuation. So it's based on the valuation of your home, which stays steady for 3 years until you go to revaluation again. So if you got a $35,000 home and it's a 10% tax exemption, homestead tax exemption, you would get 10% based off the valuation of your home, and then that's how they would figure your taxes. So you take 10% off the valuation, and they figure your taxes that way. And the reason I think this is it's something that it's giving people a break. I think at the end of the day, when you look at it, through all the talk about different ways of taxing people and tax caps and the whole bit, this is something we don't need to go to the legislature for. We can implement it as an ordinance. It can be adjusted by the council, really whenever they want to adjust it, but it provides for every 3 years with reevaluation. And it doesn't tie the hands of the future councils. They can do whatever they want with it. They could bring it to zero if they wanted to, depending on the economic status of the town. So I will tell you that, there's a move out there right now, and I'm all for it, by the way, to increase the senior exemptions. I'm not against it. But if we implement the homestead exemption, the seniors in particular, well, this benefits young families and everybody in the middle and the seniors and everybody in town, as long as you got a primary residence here. The seniors will get the homestead exemption. They'll get their senior exemption. And for many of them, they're going to get a veterans exemption. Somebody tell me what's wrong with that.
Yeah.
I mean, to just go over and increase the senior exemption and not pass the homestead exemption makes no sense to me. But to do it the way I'm asking people to do it, again, somebody tell me what's wrong with it, because I think what we're doing right now is, and in my opinion, the homestead program will provide a reasonable amount of tax relief to people who buy a home and live in Middletown and support the cost of living in this community. And, they're here year round. They support our restaurants. They support our stores. They support our businesses. They raise their kids here. They go to schools here, and they're freighting the bill. And we need to help.
Do you think you have enough support for it?
It's interesting because this is the 4th iteration of this, and I'm going to tell you, if anybody's been following it, they know who the people are that are detractors. And, I don't know what their motivation is. I'm not going to throw stones at anybody in a forum like this. But if you watch the council meeting on Monday night, it's a Zoom meeting, and we're going to be in the council chambers this Monday finally. You'll see. I'm hoping that I can make the case. I need 4 votes. I think I'm almost there. But at the end of the day, we need 4 votes. We'll see what happens. I'm not sure, Brian. I'm just not. And it's unfortunate that, like I said, as I look at this, somebody tell me what's wrong with giving the people who live in this town for all their lives and made their roots here. And it's not a second home. It's not an Airbnb. It's not somebody who just, wants to come here for 2.5 months of the year. These are the people who live here. They're full-time residents here. Why can't we help them? Especially now, in today's climate, what's going on in this community today, 25% unemployment. Boy, if there is ever a case to help our taxpayers, it's now.
Yeah. So anything else we missed in your run for state rep or as Middletown Town Councilor?
No, I mean, really, as I make this run, it's not just about Middletown. It's about Jamestown, and they have issues over there, and I know they do. And they're going to see more of me, and I'm going to try to network more in Jamestown now and be more visible. But I want the people of Jamestown to know that you're not just going to see my face. I will be there, and I will make a difference. And that's what's important. It's not all about photo ops. It's not all about taking pictures and putting articles in the paper. It's about hands-on, getting your hands dirty, getting into the weeds, and finding out what the issues are, in Jamestown and in Middletown, and trying to make a difference up at the legislature. It's more complicated than being a counselor, and I know that. It's a different animal. Certainly, I understand that. As I put it to somebody recently, can be a blood sport up there. But I think I'm up to the challenge. I think I'm up to help the people of the district, and I would just hope that when September rolls around, that they support me. So, Brian, thank you so much.
Of course. Where can people follow your campaign, get involved with your campaign, ask you questions about your campaign?
So on Facebook, it's Henry Rick Lombardi for District 74, and my email for now, they can always contact me at hlombardi@middletownri.com. I answer my emails and I answer my phone calls. I mean, really, at the end of the day, I don't have a problem giving up my phone number right now. I mean, because I take phone calls and I return them all the time. And in many cases, my constituents will tell you I show up at their door, but right now that's hard to do.
Yeah.
But I give you my phone number. I know, Ryan, you have it, and you can certainly give it to people, but it's 401-418-0512. I'm available. I'm always available. I don't care what time of the day or night. And again, if I can help somebody, I certainly will.
All right, Rick. Well, we appreciate it, and we will be sure to touch base with you at least one more time before September, and
Okay.
wish you the best of luck. And again, the declaration of candidacy for candidates who want to run for any public office in the state of Rhode Island is June 22nd, 23rd, or 24th. And so once candidates declare, they'll all be looking for signatures, and I'll put it out there. By signing somebody's declaration of candidacy does not mean that you have signed your vote away to them. It just means that you are supporting them enough to get on the ballot. I'm not sure enough people know that. So I just want to point that out, that if multiple candidates come to you, you can sign it. It doesn't mean that you're supporting them. It's just helping them get on the ballot.
And Ryan, I'll tell you that I sign everybody's papers. I don't care whether they have an R or a D or an I. In the 6 years I've been running, I sign everyone's papers, because people that want to give up their time for their community deserve support. I don't care who they are. And I encourage people to sign nomination papers for people if they ask. And the other thing is, I put a plug out. They're looking for good candidates to run for council in Middletown. If anybody has an inclination, has the time to put in, I would strongly encourage them to do that.
Yeah, and running for any seat that's out there, especially different backgrounds, different ages, is certainly encouraged in every race. And if it does anything at all, it opens up to more candidates, and it opens up the conversation more on the key issues that matter to all of us. So the more the merrier running.
Yes,
is,
absolutely.
Actually mine.
Yeah,
so, all right, Rick. Well, I hope you have a good Saturday, and we will chat with you again soon.
Ryan, I'm going to go out and enjoy the weather, and thank you so much, and thank you for everybody who took the time to listen today.
All right, Rick, thank you. And that's going to do it for us with our conversation with Rick Lombardi. If you find out more, we had his announcement on whatsupnoop.com back on Thursday, and you can go and find that video now. That's going to do it for us today. In just about an hour, for those that are watching live, we will be bringing you a live stream video of the peaceful protest that is planned here in Newport. So check out our Facebook page then, facebook.com/whatsupnew.